I'm just gonna wait for this to start here. Okay. Today, we are going to be talking about inner child work. And this is part of my series on complex PTSD recovery. I have found this is a really important part of healing complex PTSD. There's so many phenomenal opportunities in inner child work that I just don't like to miss out on, because it's a way to stack so many benefits for the brain and get the brain to start learning to do some really important things in the inner world. And I do want you to understand, I did not sign up to talk about inner child work in this therapy land. I don't like that level of woo. Um, and it's really had to prove it to me. So I'm not just going to say, I'm going to talk about this from a place of brain function, and to be so strongly like, yes, do your inner child work, and also reluctantly like, I know how that sounds. And I know many people also would not sign up for this, but I do want to show you what's going on with the brain and why this is such a phenomenal opportunity, so that you'll give it a second thought and dive in, for your brain's sake and for your long-term health and wellness. Okay. And so if this whole concept makes you feel weird, I get it. I really do. So, and brains. Okay. If your brain resolves your symptoms for you, you get to heal. If it doesn't, you end up having to compensate for that for the rest of your life. We don't need that. That's not the good stuff. Okay, so I'm Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist and emotional wellness coach. And I specialize in helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. And the brain has a beautiful process for resolving these symptoms. But that process can get blocked or stopped. And so if that process isn't up and running, you don't get your symptoms resolved. And complex PTSD is one of those things where it's just the accumulation of unresolved symptoms. And so to resolve that, we get in there and get this process unblocked and then help the brain complete all this work that it's got backlogged. And so it's quite a bit of work if this happened to you. If your complex PTSD developed as a result of relational trauma or childhood abuse and neglect, that's a long time that your processor hasn't been able to be as successful as what it's designed to be. And so there's usually a backlog of work. If that process in your brain is not running to process all this stuff, you don't get this stuff resolved. You can think yourself into higher ways of being, but you can't behave your way. You can't create it in your inner world because your brain can't go through its process of doing that for you. And so a lot of the work I do is really targeting the survival system part of the brain, because that's the part of the brain that will either stop the healing process or allow it to function. And so that's the one that blocks the whole thing. And so we really work to influence that. It is very different than the conscious parts of the brain. That's how I ended up in so much woo. It's not woo woo, but it's science. But it's definitely alternative to traditional talk therapies, and it's weird, because what this part of the brain needs is a very different thing than the thinking center needs, and we need to influence it. We need to get it on the healing team and let healing happen. And so when we're working on influencing that part of the brain, we are working with it in its native language, which is the body. It's listening to all the signals coming through our senses and through the body. And so we are actually using the interventions, we're using our body originating symptoms. So we're tapping on the body, we're breathing, we're doing different exercises with the body to talk to that part of the brain to increase processing, because we're saying, hey, it's safe. This is the way that part of the brain receives safety signals. So we're going to send a ton of safety signals while we're helping this unprocessed material get through. Okay. And so, and because we need the brain in a processing state, not a fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn, not a reactive state, not a survival state. And so we need to shift it out of that survival state and get it processing. Okay. So that's really a major piece of all this work. And inner child work is a really powerful and effective way of getting unresolved material processed. It's really, really powerful for that. So I'm all in on the inner childhood work. Um, the other piece of it is that not when we're recovering from complex PTSD, because our brain has been in survival mode for so long, it's been building survival strategies. And so if we come out of survival strategies, you're going to find your brain did not build strategies for health and thriving and wellness. And so it's going to just sit here and kind of circle around. Your brain's going to just be like, I don't even know. I know what to do over there in survival land. Why don't we go back? Right. And so we have this shifting needs. But if we can get over here in thriving land and then help the brain build the things it needs, it feels more and more comfortable thriving. It feels more and more comfortable communicating, connecting, being seen, all the things that make a human life fulfilling. And so we want to help it accomplish the building of the wellness, the building of the healthy programming, of functional programming, functional ways of being. Now, I say functional ways of being, and I'm like, that's all the juice. But for you, that might sound like, oh, who cares? But like the ability to carry out a healthy conflict resolution communication is a function. Can you do it? Yes or no, right? Maybe in between, right? And so we want to increase your function in these areas. Can you take care of yourself? That's a function, self-care. Can you do it? Yes, no, somewhere in between. Where are you at? Can we get you to up can we get higher and higher function? So we guide the brain to do that as part of healing complex PTSD. If you're in my land, if you're working with me, working with my programs, this is what we're doing. I don't just want to help you heal things and then your brain's out here like, I don't know. I don't know this whole safety thing. I think we should go back, right? No, we're going to be successful here too. Okay. So inner child work is also a way to help your brain build things it hasn't yet had. It's a building opportunity. As much as it is a healing opportunity, it slides right there quickly into a building phase. And it's like, I don't know of another strategy that does both at the same time so quickly together, woven together. And brains love it, right? So, because what I'm helping people do is I'm helping them position their brain right where their wound is, as long as they can tolerate, right? There's tricks to this. Not everybody can look directly at a wound. So we're positioning them where they can get the wound on the processor. And then we're supporting with some interventions to help the survival system finally allow that wound to make it through the healing process. And so, anyway, I could go off on that. I'm going to reel myself back in here. But so inner child work really helps with that positioning right on the wounds. Also, we need to do this in a way your brain understands. We can't just say, hey, brain, I need you to go in there and heal that wound, and then we need to make healthy function in there. No, that's a great idea. You could try that, tap with it, use your intervention. That's a great start. But often we have to get the brain closer and closer in there and then provide it support. And so what I will do with this is really start some inner child work. I'm going to show you what that looks like here. And then we're going to increase the processing, because the first thing we're going to encounter is pain. So it might be grief pain, sorrow pain, rejection pain, loneliness pain, sadness, overwhelm, anger, rage. I don't know what your little person was doing, but we're going to start connecting with that little one. And then what's going to happen is all the pain will start flowing. There's about 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes of pain processing here. We're going to be creative if we need to. A lot of people, surprisingly enough, can tolerate this pretty directly. If they can't tolerate it, they're going to check in and just check right out and be like, absolutely not, Rachel, not doing that. And that's still a win, because the brain, we looked at it, your brain knows what we're working on now. It's made contact. Okay, I want to say this is such a rich area that everything wants to go first, but I'm debating. I did have a plan, believe it or not, but my brain likes to jump off the plan. Okay, so Okay, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a minute and I'm just going to tell you why I'm making this video. I was working in a session yesterday with, I have a client who's a mental health therapist, and she also does this work. She's great at it. Um, we've been working on trying to get some healing done in this specific area for a while, but this one area has been closed off. Her inner world was like, there was like guards marching. We are not getting in there. I'm dramatizing. That was not what was happening, but that's what it felt like to me. It was just, you don't see anything over here, Rachel. And I'm like, okay, I don't. Fine. But recently it's been more coming to the surface. And because she's ready. And so we went in there, we worked with her inner child. We spent like 5 minutes connecting, setting it up, looking around, processing a little bit. And then she started going into some really beautiful processing with it. And in those moments, I can, people's eyes do different things, their coloring does different things. I can see their brain is really, really busy and at some good work. And we're using intervention. And I encourage them to use their favorite intervention. I know what that is, so I say it by name. And then I step out. I don't leave. Sometimes I run to the bathroom, if we're being honest. But really, in that moment, it depends on their skill level. If they're not very skilled, I'm staying right with them. If they're champs like this one is really good. So I know I can leave them alone and run to the bathroom. Anyway. However, so I'm standing out and I'm just watching, and I'm, taking my notes, doing my thing, chilling. And then she says, there's so much wisdom in here. It's like this part of me is smarter than I am. And that's not true. But let me tell you what's happening here. And I told her, I said, what's happening is we just found something that was painful, an unprocessed experience in your life that you didn't have the support. It's obvious she didn't have the support to heal that, to heal that. This child was not, her family system was so busy dealing with things that her childhood self was alone to deal. That's not enough brain support to get stuff processed really well. And so here's this old thing, this old wound, this old pain, all these old feelings. And all of a sudden, I positioned my client in there to sit with her younger self. That's all I had her do and process. They start having, I teach observation statements in here. So after a bit, she says, I can see that you're really angry, right? And so they're starting this talk, and the inner self, the inner child will begin to talk back usually, or they'll be silent. You'll see responses. Any of them are important. It doesn't matter, but our goal is to soothe, comfort, and observe and witness, serve as the witness to the inner child. Okay, so we're doing that. There's a lot happening silently. I don't know. She's fabulous with her work. I'm not trying to get in there and micromanage the situation. So I'm just waiting. But all of a sudden, all the things start loading up. And from your brain's perspective, this is what's happening. Before we do childhood work, your brain has done a really great job of mapping your world, life, all these things. But because there's unresolved materials in the back, unresolved things, the map has holes in it. The mind-body system is designed to deliver. We have experiences that provide us data about the world, ourselves, others. That stuff gets processed, and all of a sudden the executive functioning is sitting with all this data it's never been able to get a hold of before. And it says, these are some of these pieces we've never had before. And it goes in and starts plugging them in. And your mind-body system just starts lighting up, and there's new insights, there's new abilities, there's new functions, there's new awarenesses, there's new corrections. Like, oh, I thought this, and actually, no, now it's this. This all happens with trauma processing, but in this specific case with this inner child. This is the part of us that went through the experiences. We're not working on the experience itself. We're working with, and specifically with, the part of us that went through the experience. And so this is also a time, so all this data is being loaded, which is normal with trauma processing, okay? So we're healing a ton of things. But what else is happening here with the inner child is we have turned the brain to look at itself, because this is us. This child is us. It represents a part of us. And our brain is finally able to turn and look at it for the first time. in early childhood, we don't really have this ability unless an adult walks us through it. And that's a pretty high function. And is to not just go through an experience, but to turn the brain to look at it is really, really powerful. And that's when the brain starts to we're going to start self-soothing here. And these are actually reps where we are self-soothing. These are self-soothing reps. This is super important. If you have never accomplished this developmental milestone of being able to soothe yourself, which is frequent, this is why people are going to drugs, alcohol, sex, rock and roll, is because they don't actually have the ability to soothe themselves because it wasn't something practiced in childhood. The opportunity to soothe the self never happened in childhood. So we are doing the reps of that now, what didn't happen in the past. So we're helping the brain build in self-soothing. This is a foundational skill. If you cannot soothe yourself, you will be reliant on others and substances and outside externals to soothe yourself forever. This is a practice that has to be built. This is part of the healthy foundation. This is how your brain will sustain your health and wellness for the rest of your life. And if we can practice this, the brain gets better and better and better because the brain gets better. Our brain gets better and better at anything it practices. And so we are turning in here to practice. I will do as many inner child sessions with somebody as it takes to get these processes running. And if there's a developmental milestone, we're going to use some inner child work here. We're going to find it. And I say to them, can you find the part of you that feels the most stressed about this? Often it's a younger part. Or I'll say, can you see the version of you that went through that painful experience when you were in kindergarten? Yes. Okay, there we go. We're going to go meet with that person. There's lots of little doorways you can use to walk people right in to be face to face with their self. Now, there are times when people that have had the most neglect have had the least amount of practice with soothing themselves. So they are typically not able to accomplish this in the first time. As a matter of fact, they might even be repelled by themselves. They might have a younger version and they're like, I'm not going there, or they'll be disgusted by that self. There's a barrier of contempt, disgust, numbness, whatever here. They are not going. This is great. This is wonderful. This is exactly what's in their inner world. This is the obstacle their brain needs to resolve. Brains process disgust and self-hatred. So we're getting in there. We're not making connection yet. We're working on the stuff that's blocking our connection with ourselves. Yes. And this stuff resolves very quickly, very well. Sometimes I have to do 2 sessions on this. And with people that have had the most severe neglect, or not just neglect, but manipulative experiences with a parent, and the parent has just twisted everything. Their wiring is left and right and up and down. This is really, really hard. And but we usually work, some of them we are working, we will take a long time to make that actual connection because there's so much damage done, or there's so much unresolved things. The people that have more neglect, there's just several unresolved things. The people who have manipulative parental relationships, that is going to take a bit of time because we have so many wires we need to get the brain to start running accurately. It's like hitting a light switch and you try to hit down so it's off, but in their world, the off turns things on. Things are backwards, things are different. The parents have wired them so that they are so disorganized they can't find themselves. So we're going to fix all that in inner child work. We can fix all that in inner child work, and it can be a slow process, and all the failures matters. Your brain needs to see where you're failing. That's how it learns it's failing. If you're shooting a basketball and you can't see where the ball is going, your brain can't make any corrections for you. If you're shooting a basketball and you're over here to the left and you can't make any baskets, your brain is watching you fail repeatedly. That's great because it's saying, what the heck? And it's working on the mind-body system and the muscles and getting everything coordinated. And pretty soon you're shooting. So you've built the making baskets program. Okay, so right here, we're gonna fail our way to success here. We're gonna position in front of the inner child and see what happens. And whatever happens, that's exactly what needs to happen. And we're gonna process that. And it might be connection. Most people connect pretty quickly. But For those who are more traumatized, this is strange and this is awkward and it's failing, but I want you to know that's good. That's good. And the more your brain gets to process and watch, as long as we're in the processing state while you're failing, we're winning. And that's why we're using interventions, because failures can be very distressing, but we're moving that over and we're holding and processing while we're failing. And so these are great reps. It's one thing about complex PTSD is that failure, usually our failure programs are so terrible, we can't get up and try again. And that makes things really difficult for us because success is about failure, about multiple failures, gathering data. And so people with complex PTSD have a harder time succeeding, a longer time succeeding, because of how failures are not, the program is a self-destructing program or a self-limiting program. And people from healthy families and healthy homes and healthy people with healthy failure programming, they use program failures so well, and they just get to keep failing and trying and failing and trying. It's the privilege of failing well, right? Failing. So, um, so that is a lot of what inner child work is for me. And now, and I want you to understand a couple of things, that if we could position your brain to the self and to do this work in other ways, we could. But brains are very specific. Brains love to personify these things, to personify things, to imagine things. It likes to see things in parts. It likes to see things in wholes. But the whole, a hole as in not a hole in the ground, but a hole with a W. It likes to see things in its entirety. But it really, when we start healing, it really is breaking things into parts. And so having a part of you that's an inner child is great, because your brain likes to make those kind of moves. And it's like, here's my grown-up self, my little self, and my grown-up self is going and is having these conversations. And this one's holding all the resources and all the things that we need, and all the new lessons we've learned and all the growth and all this stuff. And so we're bringing that here. We've actually got a healthy adult. And guess what? You are the adult, like you're the adult you're looking for. And you actually have developed the things you needed for your childhood. So when we bring these two together, your brain is working on that in kind of play. It's kind of like play therapy. And so, but for adults. And so, but your brain is trying to figure out how do these things go together. And then the merge happens. And actually we're integrating that inner child into who we are now. We're integrating that experience into who we are now. And we're putting those resources on that time. So our brain is doing so many gorgeous things with this. And what results is expansion, growth, maturation, higher function. There's going to be things that your brain could not help you do before you did inner childhood work. And now that you did the inner child work, there are things you're going to be able to do now that you were never able to do. That happens all the time. I personally have experienced this. As a matter of fact, if I get triggered really deeply, it's usually I do some inner child work with it. And then I will finish that. If I get triggered really deeply, it takes me about 3 days to work through, to integrate one of these things with my life and my children and all the functions I have to do. It takes me about 3 days. And after that, I always notice I can do things that I wasn't able to do. Always. So I love inner child work. I love it. I cannot tell you how much expansion and awesomeness we can do with this. And so this is a part I teach in part 3 of my program. So I don't teach it right away because there's some other skills I like people to develop. But when we get there, then, and people with complex PTSD need a lot of bringing the brain to the self. We call this resourcing. Sometimes we bring other people to the self. Sometimes I'm working with people's, we're imagining their 45, 65, 75-year-old self coming in and supporting. And instead of, so it's still them, but here. Okay. Also, where attention goes, energy flows. The mind-body system's energies flow to that part. This is a way of firing and wiring specific parts of our neural network. So there's a lot of rewiring and strengthening and growth that can happen on just the nervous system and wiring level here. Also, if you think about it from that child version of you, did not get a lot of energy, did not get a lot of attention in that spot or helpful attention. And now we can do it now, and we can do this. So to my client, that was, she said, you need to do this on, she's like, you need to make a video on this, and on the wisdom the inner child holds. And it really, it really is wisdom. There's a lot of pain in there. That's why we stay away from it. But brains are great at processing that pain out. And then it's just so much wisdom, so much knowledge about who you are, so much power, so much empowerment. This is how we resolve powerlessness. This is, we can resolve so many things, building confidence. After people work with their inner child, you can't tell them anything. You can't, I mean, they're just like, I am so worthy. I have more power than I thought I did. I'm okay with this. I'm at peace. There's so many healing functions that happen here. And it's because it really engages the subconscious mind. It engages the body. It engages so many. It's like, it's like, if you're painting and you're working, you can do so many things, but there's some things that are so important to the painting that you can only do with this precise instrument. That's what inner child work is like. It's not the only thing we want to use, but it is a very powerful, powerful, important component, especially when recovering from complex PTSD, early childhood abuse and neglect. We need a lot of this inner child in these situations. And in many situations, it's right where they weren't seen. And all of a sudden we can bring a healthy adult or a getting healthy adult to this place and create all this healing and transformation. So I learn a lot about people and their infrastructure by doing this inner work with them, especially if they're repulsed by their inner self. That tells me a lot about their history. It also tells me a lot about their ability to self-soothe in several developmental processes. It tells me how much is undeveloped. It tells me how much is developed. If someone can get in and their system just automatically does this work, and it goes through the healing really quickly, and lots of people do, is okay, we've got a lot functioning here, and there's less on the checklist to accomplish. So so inner child work is really helpful. It's really powerful, and I'm saying there it's kind of even diagnostic. There's so many things we can learn about ourselves, and I, as a therapist or a coach, can learn about somebody based on what happens when they meet their self in their inner world. And it is wisdom. There's just so much wisdom that comes forward. But I think the thing that stands out the most in this is just walking away with a feeling of wholeness. Complex PTSD can leave us feeling very fractured, very fragile, very vulnerable, very alone. And this inner child work is really excellent for creating that sense of wholeness, a sense of belonging, a sense of internal safety. There's a lot of power here. I wish I could even go on and tell you more. I will be making more videos about this and being more specific as micro issues start showing up. But I did want to just talk to you about inner child work, let you know how awesome it is. And I know it seems weird. We're grown-ups. Why are we doing this? But it's perfect. It's a perfect match for brains. So wonderful connecting with you. I'll see you later. Bye.